Alright guys, the time is now for a showdown between the Empire, who's going to be led by Pimp Daddy Gelt, and the Dwarves, who are going to be led by a Rune Lord, and it does not look like he's going to be atop his mighty anvil. So as far as the history of this matchup goes, I always felt like it was very tough for the Empire. The Dwarves have pretty good stalwart infantry, so they can hold your front line back, deal with your state troops with blasting charges. On top of that, they have Thunders, which are a little bit more cost efficient than your handgunners. They do have the shields, of course, and pretty good defensive stats, so they can usually outtrade you there. And on top of that, they have cannons. They have organ guns, a lot of things that can drag down heavy cav, which, of course, cav are always pretty good against dwarves, especially mobile armor-piercing cav. But as far as the Empire options go, I mean, you do have Demogryph Knights with lances, but I find them to not be too good against dwarf and cannon fire. However, I came across this build the other day on ladder. So I was actually playing the dwarves, and someone did something very similar to, they were actually playing as the Empire, and they did something very similar to the build I'm using. Not quite the same. I added in the warrior priests, and I also put in the hell meme rocket battery here, which I just wanted to have a little bit of fun, but I do think the core of the build is quite strong. So here in the front, we do have 6 greatswords. So I just kind of was thinking, I'm like, what's really good against dwarves? Okay, heavy armored infantry. Now, yes, the Imperial greatswords aren't going to be, as good as like Chaos Warriors or kind of equivalents from other factions like Harganeth Executioners. But, the warrior priests, of course, do give AoE buffs now. So we have 2 warrior priests on the ends of the formation. And effectively, with their radius, they can usually be buffing about 2 greatswords at once, which is pretty good if you take a spaghetti engagement. So let's go ahead and take a look at the items here. I guess I should say the buffs. So the Hammer of Sigmar, we're going to be giving 26 melee attack to our greatswords. And on top of that, we do give the Shield of Faith, which gives 22% ward save against all damage types. So that's very powerful in its own right. On top of that, we do have Benediction as well, which is going to be giving 8 leadership. But at this core of this build, it's just a very, very wide punishing build to the dwarves, right? Everything is going to be good against them. Greatswords, I'm pretty sure, do beat Longbeards with great weapons. They'll, of course, lose to the higher end dwarf infantry like hammers and things like that. But where the greatswords really struggle is against like Runes of Wrath and Ruin and artillery fire and thunder fire and things like that. But I think in these type of numbers, it's going to be really tough for the dwarves to handle. That's only half of the build, essentially. So you do have Balthazar Gelt, and we just have him on foot. We're just going really cheap, really wide. Everything we have is stripped down to like a bare minimum. Balthazar Gelt does have his staff as well as the Arcane Conduit here. And we're going to be using the Final Transmutation to burn down the Dwarf Lords. And here's the second part of the build. We do have, I think, 5 handgunners in total. So yes, oftentimes you're going to be seeing like 2 or 3 of the Thunders from the Dwarfs. But if you just have a sheer numbers advantage like this, you can usually outgun them and do a pretty good job. So we have 5 handgunners. Yeah, I think that's what I said. We do have 5 in total, 1 in the middle, 2 on the flanks. And what's cool is you can position them on the flanks, which means you're not going to have problems with line of sight, really. And the dwarves can't really catch them very efficiently. And on top of that, you don't have to worry about like cav or other things like you would from other factions. So you put them on the flanks and just start gunning them up, and usually goes pretty well. I've had some really, really good success with this build. On top of that, we have the Hellstorm Rocket Battery, which if you wanted to really like fine tune this build to make it super competitive, I would probably just cut the Hellstorm Rocket Battery and mix in some more flank pressure, or you can even get like 2 Empire Knights or something like that. And I think it would be a little bit stronger, but nonetheless, it's already doing some pretty good damage against these Thunders here. So, I mean, it isn't terrible against the Dawi, I suppose. And I mean, if they want to shoot their cannon at this, that's fine. It can be a bit of a distraction. So that's it for my build. It's just greatswords in the front line, 5 handgunners. We do have Balthazar Gelt as well as 2 warrior priests, which are going to be buffing up the front line. And these guys are dirt cheap. When you strip them down, they cost like what, like 600, 500 or something? It's a really, really good. And for the dwarves, pretty typical stuff. Miners with blasting charges in the front line. They do provide some armor piercing against the greatswords, and blasting charges are very good against state troops like swordsmen and things like that. And in the past, a lot of Empire players did resort to very cheesy tactics like double Witch Hunter Balthazar Gelt to beat the dwarves, but I really do think that the warrior priests and the greatswords can do the trick. So miners in the front line here, he does have Longbeards with great weapons in the secondary line, which do bring some pretty good armor piercing, and they'll put up a good fight against greatswords. I do think they lose simply because of the bonus versus infantry on the greatswords, but yeah, it'd be something to test out. He does have a Rune Lord right here, and a Master Rune of Wrath and Rune and Negation, a Thane as well to provide some support. And I have seen people bring Thanes to like chase down Witch Hunters and things like that. He does have a cannon in the back, 2 Slayers, which honestly with this build I'm bringing are not going to be very good, right? There's no heavy cav for them to chase. I mean, they can chase down the handgunners, but then I can split them up and get good crossfire. But anyways, guys, without further ado, let's get this show on the road. So the dwarves are going to be advancing, as will I. And the Hellstorm Rocket Battery is going to be dropping some hot fire, hopefully getting some value here. Here comes the first volley, or the first volley since started casting this game. It does hit the Thunders, does a little bit of work. That second volley definitely did a lot, and the greatswords are now going to engage. The handgunners, I'm positioning on the flanks. We're going to be shooting inward, and you can see the same thing is happening over here. So the fight is underway, blasting charges going down, but the greatswords are definitely ready to party. Master Rune, so I think he accidentally layered his runes there. Maybe it's just kind of bugging out a little bit, can't really tell. But anyways, greatswords charging in. They don't take too much from the blasting charges because I do pop the Grand Shield of Faith, which is going to be quite helpful, and these miners are going to get chopped up so badly. Warrior Priest really anchoring that charge. Balthazar Gelt sitting in the back cackling, and definitely a pretty good target here. He's very bunched up. He does have that Master Rune of Negation on, so a little bit of poor timing on my part, but Oh, it looks like it wore off right when the cow's going. So I do hit a final transmutation right here. It's going to hit both the Dwarf Lord as well as the Thane. So definitely quite happy about that. And the Greatswords can chop him up pretty easily, actually. They do well against the infantry-sized units. Over here on the far side, he's going to be chasing me back here with some of the Longbeards, but they're just getting Last Samurai so hard. And once he starts chasing one group, you just split the other one off. So whenever he chases, he's going to take some crossfire. I also did pull back some Greatswords and Auxiliary, and now that they've been softened up by the handgunners, I should easily be able to finish those guys off. Same thing on the other side, he is chasing me with the Dragonback Slayers, but every time he goes to chase, I just have the other group shooting at them, getting some pretty good value, despite they do have the shields, but if you're shooting them in the back, it's not really going to help them out too much. So it looks like they did drop orders, so I'm not sure quite what happened there, but regardless, we're going to be getting some massive fire on those guys. The Greatswords are going to be intercepting the Longbeards, and you can see the Dwarf Thunders actually taking a lot of damage from the Hellstorm Rocket Battery, which is going to keep raining some hot fire back here, and you can see a nice direct hit right there. It's going to probably take out a model and do some HP damage. So far, if we take a look at the battlefield as a whole, definitely going pretty good. The Dwarves are being picked apart in the infantry fight. The Greatswords just chopping them down with the support of those Warrior Priests there. And a lot of the Thanes and leadership are very tattered. So Balthazar Gelt's going in with the Pimp Cane right here. I knew this would be pretty risky, but I was like, I'm just going to buy him a second and then run away, which is going to allow my Thunders to kind of set up shop and start shooting the Rune Lord. So I definitely can't stay for too long. The Dwarves are going to, absolutely beat down Balthazar Gelt. I feel like a Runesmith could probably kill him as well. So Balthazar Gelt throws a straight kick. You can see the Warrior Priest is going to be coming in as well. But, as he chases me, I just intercept with my auxiliary troops. I just get those handgunners online and, do everything I can in that respect. So right here, I have some pretty good crossfire. The Greatswords have held up this formation. This group of handgunners is just shooting happily at the Dragonback Slayers, which is one of the biggest threats to me, right? Because they're relatively mobile. But these handgunners are now online, just shooting at the Runesmith. The Warrior Priest here is actually able to beat down the Rune Lord, so he's doing pretty well for Sigmar here. Hammer of Sigmar has been popped, which is going to buff him up to 71 melee attack. And on top of that, the Greatswords have caught up, and they should be able to easily take this guy out. So the Dwarfs being overextended a little bit. The Hellstorm Rocket Battery not doing like, the end of all things type damage here, but it's doing pretty good work and kind of disrupting those handgunners. One of my Greatswords has pushed through and is going to be doing some disruption back there. And the Dawi Cannon has just been shooting my Greatswords or handgunners this entire time, neither of which are like the best targets. So more crossfire action going on. These Greatswords have caught up these Slayers and are pinning them down. And Greatswords do beat Slayers in sustained combat because of their armor. And over here, we're just getting that juicy Last Samurai action. So these guys are moving quickly, I think it looks like. Yeah, I actually can't see how fast they're moving. But again, they're trying to catch these handgunners here who do have 33 speed. And at this point, I decided to just turn and shoot. And you get to see massive withering fire on the Grumbling Guard here. And in just a moment, I'm actually going to be engaging in melee with these handgunners against their Grumbling Guard. And the reason I'm going to do that is because, number one, these guys don't have a huge charge bonus, and it's going to allow my Greatswords and Warrior Priests to catch up in just a moment. So you can see here, I do engage in melee. Not going to be the best situation, but nonetheless, the Dwarf Lord back here is very, very tattered. The Warrior Priests and the Greatswords were able to take him out. And the Slayers are going to be pouring into the back line, but the Greatswords still just doing a great job. All of them have a ton of kills, and we're able to just pull our opponent apart with how wide our army is. So Balthazar Gelt's coming in with the steel chair now. You can see the Dwarf Lord does have 33 HP. Oh no, Doom has come to your world. Oh my god, is he going to catch him? So Balthazar Gelt has 37 speed compared to 32 on this Dwarf Lord. So he's definitely going to catch him. He's got his Pimp Cane, he's got his sword. I know there's other important things going on, but we gotta watch this. Oh, and Balthazar Gelt decapitates him. Brutal stuff going on there. Rune of Wrath and Ruin has gone down on the handgunners here, and it looks like some of these Longbeards are going to catch him, but everywhere he goes, you can see the Runesmith actually gets shot in the back by the other group of handgunners here. Very dishonorable stuff, but whenever I get chased, I just take advantage of the fact that the handgunners are faster than the Dwarf infantry, and I'm able to just crossfire them with the other supporting units here. And you can see it's doing a ton of work. So in the main pocket, the Warrior Priest does pop the Hammer of Sigmar as well as the Shield of Faith, and that's pretty much it. The Dwarves don't have too much left. In the back, they're trying to regroup a little bit, but you can see that the Thunders are all very beat up. The Hellstorm Rocket Battery has done all this damage all by themselves, so it's pretty good. I mean, it probably pushed them to army losses at this point. I had all my handgunners online. My Greatswords were a little bit beat up, but for the most part, I definitely could re-rally my forces and push forward. So I think that's a really good build against the Dwarves. I feel like it's going to be very tough to handle because you have really good powder, you have good overwatch from the Hellstorm Rocket Battery. I mean, you could switch it out for like a any sort of artillery piece, but the Hellblaster Volley or the Hellstorm Rocket Battery does have really good range. So I mean, it's not going to have to get too close to the Dwarves. So I guess there is something to say about that. But I mean, it didn't do bad that game. It was like perpetual damage. It didn't run out of ammunition. It was actually still firing at the end, which I thought was pretty cool. I don't know if the regular Hellstorm Rocket Battery actually has more ammo than the elite one. What is that one called? The Sunmaker? Yeah, I think that's what it is. But the Greatswords did really well, especially when supported by the Warrior Priest. Their melee attack was suddenly like 50-something. And they were able to just mincemeat those Longbeards with great weapons and, just cut apart the miners as well as the regular Longbeards. So definitely very solid stuff from those guys. I really like the stripped down Warrior Priest as well as Balthazar Gelt on foot. I mean, having him on his mount is pretty good, but if he's up in the air, he's a pretty big target for the handgunners. And on foot, he's just kind of like, he costs like 1,100 gold or something. So going with these cheap units allows you to go really wide and maximize the strengths of, what's good against the dwarves, right? Just armor piercing. So great swords, handgunners. I mean, you can mess around with cav, but the dwarves have really good answers against cav. If I had any cav, the cannon would have killed them, the thunders would have picked him off, the slayers would have been in their element. But by going with a build like this, the dwarves aren't really going to see it coming, and they're going to have to respect the cav, right? Because cav is normally what gives them trouble. So the Dragonback Slayers and the regular Slayers and, this overkill of powder isn't going to be that good against you. I definitely think it's a pretty strong build. So very well played by my opponent, Silly Soldier Man. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Empire vs. Dwarf game, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.